Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Welcome back. Considering the international break is here, it's probably going to be the last video for about a week, in which case I will wish you a terrific week as opposed to a terrific day, because everything you need will not be on Wednesday. Didn't even plan that, or didn't ever plan the introductions really, so that was a nice little rhyme to start with. In terms of the game week, obviously when I activate the free hit chip, my expectation is not to finish on a red arrow when I was at 6.5, 6.8 million, and to be 21 points down on the team that remained prior. But, you know, it is what it is. I don't think the selections were necessarily warranting at all of this type of swing, nor the rank drop. But, you know, it is what it is and can just move on. Naturally, it's not been a start that before game week 1 I would have wanted or expected. But that's where I'm at now. As the title would have suggested, there's the wildcard's active, and there's probably no better time for me to try and turn it around than with this chip being active, the most powerful one in the game, arguably. So, yeah, if it can get this bad in 7 weeks, it can get, well, just imagine how good it can get in 31 weeks, right? In the 31 that remain. And like I said, I'll just keep going again and again, going again and again and again. And if it so happens this continues for the whole season and the season after that and the season after that, then so be it. It will be what it will be. But I will have some faith that at some point it will turn. And like I said, I don't think I've played badly enough for it to warrant this current rank. Maybe you've disagreed with some/many of my decisions, but I think most certainly a fair statement regardless. Anyway, moving on to the free hit team. Oh, and if you are in a similar position to myself, I hope that you can take something from that. And even if it's not the exact faith in the fact that it'll all work out, maybe just announce, just to make your day a little bit better. Just consider and ponder some of the things in there. But anyway, you did not come for that. You came for FPL. And in terms of FPL, we'll start from the back and work our way forward. But considering it was a free hit, a lot of these are combination picks as opposed to picks in isolation. So I'll dabble everywhere. Mamardashvili, and if I mispronounce that, which I'm quite confident I did, I apologize, obviously only returned 2 points. And for many people, including myself, wouldn't really have been the preference for the goalkeeping slot. However, as I explained, I put a hell of a lot of money into the front line and I had Calafiori. So the defensive cash available was very, very limited. And you know what? Considering, for example, let's say the most popular pick outside of the free hit for the template maybe was Raya this week, he got 6 points. And Mamardashvili was on 4 right until the 95th minute goal that we scored, right? So all in all, I don't think it was that bad of a pick. Could we have had more in that game? Yeah, absolutely. But I didn't anticipate Maresca playing the side that he did. When I saw the lineup, I was like, oh, great. We actually could win this now. Like, this is a really, really good team selection. Where he hadn't been too adaptable recently, certainly did for this big game. And that's something we'll come to talk about. So yeah, you know what? Maybe 2 point was a fair outcome. But like I said, I was happy to accept a little bit of a defeat here because I wanted to put the money elsewhere. In terms of the Villa defense, I mean, Burnley had nothing in the game, like quite literally nothing. But then they pop up with a late goal. I did fear it when he made the substitutions of Buendia and Gessend. I thought it upset the balance of the team a little bit. But yeah, still, they didn't really have much, and they just once they have, and it is what it is, right? Powell was a nice selection in terms of DEFCON. Had a feeling he might get that, considering his style of play, and he hits 13. So at least that wasn't too bad. But yeah, Cash didn't have anything really going forward. So that wasn't great. Calafiori, so this, for example, as an example, like you'll see that Gabriel gets 3 more points than him, but Gabriel had no attacking threat in the game. Calafiori made a lot of good advancements into the final third. I thought had a good few nice little actions in there. And the big one had a shot from outside the box, was rifled against the inside of the post, hit Areola's back and still didn't go in. But we've seen that goal go in where a couple inches to the left and it would have been a goal. Completely different story, right? So in terms of the pick, I think it was absolutely fine. What I could have done maybe was gone him and Timber, but like I said, I wasn't 100% sure Arsenal were going to keep a clean sheet. And honestly, even though I expected them to be good, they were better than the good. They were amazing. Because that West Ham side, between Somerville, Bowen and Paquetá, that's quite a bit of threat and transition. I think Wilson would have suited the game far more up top. Maybe he's just not fit enough to start, but if he is, I think he would have suited it much more. And they gave them nothing. I mean, aside from like the first 5 minutes, maybe where West Ham had a couple moments, they gave them absolutely nothing. I thought it was incredibly good from Arsenal. But anyway, it was a decent pick in the end. Then moving on to the other guys, I mean, it's not exactly pretty viewing. Haaland and Foden were always going to be there. Haaland's, I mean, picks very much justifies itself. Foden obviously got into really good positions in the first half in particular, had nothing in the second half. But in the first half of that performance, could have warranted a return in terms of where he got into. But he just looked a little bit off it on the day. And on another day, it's a series of returns, especially considering how high ceiling of a player he is, how sharp he's looked as of late. But, it just wasn't to be, and that's okay. Saka, well, he didn't have too much in the game. He had obviously had that disallowed goal, and then he took the penalty over Gyökeres, which was a welcome sight. But yeah, he didn't have too much. I think in general, the spread of attacking, I wouldn't say out because they didn't score the goals, but the spread of attacking threat in the game was quite present between obviously Rice, who scored, Eze, who had a couple of big moments. Gyökeres had maybe one or two here or there. Saka also had a little bit. Like, it was all just a little bit for everyone, right? And obviously the fullbacks, who had quite a big say as well. And I think that'll maybe be a trend going forward. So it's very much being okay with Saka being maybe more high floor and slightly lower ceiling. But in terms of the pick, I think, considering the fixture, it was fine. Mbeumo, started off really well, got an assist, obviously started the game unlike Cunha, which we'll come on to, and had a decent chance maybe to add to that with a goal, but Roos made a good save and it wasn't the greatest shot. But a 6-pointer, not the end of the world. The other three, this is where I think it's very fair to criticize the selections. In particular, Cunha. He was the one player on the watch list where I was like, you know what, I actually could see the benching. And that's why when he was benched, I was like, you know what, fair enough. Because I had read a tweet from FPL Fraser, and he'd said that Cunha didn't look 100% against Brentford. And I didn't notice that, but he obviously watches every second of every United game. And I knew that I probably should have read into that a little bit more, and I didn't, and he got benched. And maybe that wasn't the reason, but maybe it was, and I think that was a fair punishment for the decision. And in terms of Gordon and Watkins, maybe I could have been a little bit more cautious because Gordon and Watkins both had Europe midweek. Watkins had it on Thursday, Gordon had it on Wednesday, but played 90. So maybe I could have been a bit more cautious. Maybe I could have anticipated Forest's approach slightly better, their more pragmatic approach, albeit they had very little attacking threat, like very little with it. So those two selections, again, I think are completely fair to criticize. Other than that, I went for a score draw. I went for 1-1 in the Everton Palace game. Obviously, it was 2-1, but nice for that to unfold the way it did. Njai had very, very little. I'll just talk about now the plays that I took out. Njai had very, very little throughout the game. But obviously got given a penalty from a poor mistake. And then, you know what? He absolutely deserved that assist last minute. Better should have scored. So maybe it evened out there to an extent. But in terms of the matchup analysis, I think I did a good job there. The big one is obviously Antoine Semenyo, right? Because when you're 18 points down initially, it's going to be kind of hard to come back. Again, I think the matchup analysis was pretty good. Maybe I should have given more credit to, one, his form, and two, the magic that he's got in him at the moment, which we'll come on to. The first goal was unbelievable. But Fulham, in their approach, in their five-at-the-back approach, which is what I spoke about, did very well at neutralising Bournemouth. Even Iraola at halftime spoke about how they were having challenges with breaking the block down. So I thought the analysis was good for that. But he just comes up with a moment of magic. And then in terms of the other two returns, he gets an assist from the halfway line because of Kluivert. And then the last-minute goal is not really something I can anticipate. So, yeah, obviously on the surface he gets an 18-pointer, but I don't think the performance was one which necessarily warranted it, and neither was the matchup one that was potentially telling of it. So I'm cool with the decision. And Evan Nilsson didn't have much, and I took him out and he blanked, and similar to JP, so I was happy with that. Obviously, Gakpo scored, but I kind of made my mind up that if I was going to not free hit, I was selling him for Mbeumo anyway, so it didn't really matter. In Jai, I spoke about Evan Nilsson, JP blanked. And then the defense, Gabriel Calafiori, you know what? I accept that risk with him. Gabriel more likely to get DEFCON, so fair enough. Your defender's not going to get an attack and return every game, so again, I take the risk there, no problem. And, Cucurella. I always had Liverpool down as scoring. To be honest, I had them down as winning, so I definitely got that one wrong. I didn't expect Maresca to put up the lineup that he did. But yeah, to get a 7-point is pretty good, all things considering, and I wasn't really expecting him to get an attacking return. And he was far less attacking than usual as well. Like the fullbacks did very much deeper and had far less license, and understandably so considering Liverpool's threat and transition and just in general the quality of the wide players. So yeah, I'm not too displeased with that decision. I think it was fair. Kirk has only got a 1-pointer, so is what it is, and Sells conceded twice. So yeah, that's that. So in terms of the players I took out, I don't think it was too bad. It just so happened that 3 of the mids scored and one of them got another goal and another assist to go alongside with it. Yeah. Oh yeah, and Villa conceded. I wasn't really banking on that. But it happened. So yeah, like I said, I think when you pick through it and go through it in quite some depth, as I have done in my mind, I don't think it was too bad. Watkins, Gordon, Cunha, fair enough. The fact that they all combined for 6 points, I think is not what I was expecting, and I think fairly so, but I can still understand those three selections. And Madashev, if I'm going to take one out of them for not being great. But the rest, I think, were okay. And the players that left, I think, as well. So yeah, that's my view on my free hit. Obviously, I'd love to have it back and be able to play it down the line, but that's not the case. So we'll move on with Wildcard 8 in a little bit after the FPL match analysis, and we'll look to see how we can improve that rank in the top right corner. This FPL match analysis section has been done in chronological order, but regardless, there's probably no one better to start the analysis section on than Antoine Semenyo. Obviously, in the prior section, I touched on the fact that I probably could have given more credit and given a greater weighting to the fact that right now he's in such good form, and the fact that it seems that there's some magic in those boots, and there really are. There was an interview with him after where he talked about a change in mentality leading to this phenomenal run of form, which is something I constantly referenced last season, and I spoke about his mental profile a little bit, and if he just tweaked it ever so slightly, then he could just explode as he has done. Now, especially considering I'd spoken about it, I probably should have taken some more notice of that because I really didn't think of it much at all in my selection. So that I could have done. But like I said, I think in terms of the matchup, if you missed that part in the prior section, the way Fulham went with 5 at the back, the way that Bournemouth were having struggles breaking that block down, as Iraola spoke about half-time, and considering how highly owned he is, was a fair opportunity for me to take a bet against, especially when I like some of the other differential prospects in the week. So that's that. But he's just got that magic in him at the moment. The first goal is ridiculously good. Like, it is so good. The second goal that he scored is great in terms of desire to get there, the finish, the balance, everything about it, including the knee slide after. The first goal is just wow. And going forward, I will definitely think about that, because initially when I was planning the Wildcard 8 draft that I had prior to this game week, I had him benched next week. I wanted to bench him this week and next week. And, maybe it'll be at least harder to do so, right? Fulham's attack's really interesting because you look at what they start with, and this has been the second game in a row. You look at what they start with, for example, Iwobi, Harry Wilson, Josh King, but then you look at the difference when Chukwueze and Kevin come on, and it's night and day. Now, obviously, the players are more fatigued by the time that Chukwueze and Kevin come on, but still, how often do we watch games where substitutes don't make this type of an impact? And they look great going forward, really good. So I think it's only a matter of time. I think Josh King needs some physical development to play in a game like this. For example, every time he got the ball, they were on him. They just jumped straight away. Another thing is they were pinned back so deep that whenever he's receiving at the halfway line. When you're receiving here in the halfway line and you only have 3 up top and your wing backs aren't bombing forward, it's not so much about being a passer, which is more of what Josh King is in the front 3. It's more so about your carrying ability. And with his physical stature at the moment, it's very difficult for him to get the better of, let's say, Senesi in a carry, Diakate in a carry, right? So I think in these type of games in particular, having someone like a Kevin and Chukwueze, a better carrier, alongside Iwobi, would be beneficial. And that's why I think in these type of games, where they are going to be pinned back a bit more, now that they have these players, and Jimenez will be in the side, undoubtedly will be better. What I would say is against blocks, for example, they've had some issues in the past, breaking them down, similar to Bournemouth. Again, with Kevin and Chukwueze, you can now pair him with King, and you'd have an extra man because you'd have the 9 up top as well, and they'll be so much more effective now, right? Obviously, you've still got Iwobi and Harry Wilson, but having this dynamism, this carrying power, this 1v1 threat with Kevin in particular, I think that's great. And so I expect them to improve. With Bournemouth, I look at their attack and it doesn't inspire me so much. I think with Semenyo and Evan Nilsson, you have a great base there, right? For me, Kluivert against blocks, again, may not be the most effective thing in the world because he's a bit more of a carrier and a shooter, but his shooting and the quality of ball striking in certain situations can be very useful. I look back to the season where City were using Rodri's shots from the edge of the box as their way of breaking down blocks, right? Because they weren't really having too much success making chances in the middle for Haaland, right? So they just had Rodri shoot from out the side of the box and score. So maybe they can utilize Kluivert in a fashion like that. However, I do think maybe if you got a little bit more attacking output from a member in the pivot and on the right side, Adley could potentially be that guy. That would be great. It's just that also in these type of games, you really want goals from your 9 because the chances you're going to get, maybe they'll be few and far between and the type, because everyone's so deep and it's so congested, will just be those really snappy 1-2 second, very instinctual type of finishes. The type that Chris Wood was scoring, for example, last season, a decent amount. Evan is not that type exactly. He's so good in so many ways, so associative, like really good at combining, really good at linking, will drop in for you, works like a dog, amazing in that sense, right? But just that ruthless finishing, maybe not quite that type. So I do think that's something to note, considering Bournemouth's attacking dynamics in the future. But with Semenyo's magic, when you have a player like this, you can kind of just make something out of nothing, as he did, and I think we've certainly got to be warranting of that. So it's probably just Semenyo and no one else in terms of the attack. And then lastly, you're also not getting too much from the fullbacks going forward, like too much, especially against blocks. So something to consider. In these bigger games where there's transitions, not an issue, as it hasn't been for basically ever since Iraola came in, apart from the start. You know, it's funny because, I don't know, not so long ago, I would have said, no. Not so long ago, I would not have said, definitely would not have said, Arsenal are going to win the league. I did not have them winning the league at the start of the season. But they look brilliant. They look brilliant. And Eze in the middle, and I spoke about this after the Newcastle game, Eze in the middle, they look so much better with him. They look so much better with him. I think Calafiori's having a great season at left back as well. I think the right back, whoever it is, Timber or White, again, really good. The centre backs is the best pairing in the league, probably. You couldn't argue Van Dijk, Kanate, obviously, they're just not having a great time of it at the moment. They've got Zubamendi at the base now. They've got their progressor, they've got their passer. You've got Rice as well. I mean, you've got one of the best midfielders. Then you have one of the best 10s in the league in Eze. You have one of the best right wingers in Saka. Striker and left wing, that's where I think they can make upgrades. I think when Havertz comes back, can they play him over Gyökeres? I think so, because I mean, Havertz still cost 72 million, right? So it's not like he was cheap. So even from a business standpoint, but obviously you've got a lot more utility out of him already, considering when he joined. But yeah, I think if they can just fix their left wing output a little bit, just because of the role, it's very hard. You need a very specific type of profile, and they don't have that at the moment. And you get more output than 9, which I don't think you're going to get from Gyökeres. I just don't see how teams are really going to beat them. They're so hard to score against. You know what? Forget, they're so hard to make a chance against now. It's ridiculous. And at least before, right, they weren't really penetrating your block as much. They weren't as big of a threat in transition, particularly without Eze. Like, I think he's been an amazing upgrade for them. So, you know how they talk about attack as the best form of defense? At least you then, because of their inefficiency there, you could probably force it a little bit more, get on the ball, and then try and hurt them. But now, like, it's so tough. And I watch him, I just think, how is anyone in this league at the moment really meant to beat him? I mean, Pep Guardiola's side went there and they just literally parked the bus like it was old school Jose Mourinho. And this is a Guardiola side. And we see how much talent the City side have. But yeah, they really could win the league. As long as they don't get too many injuries, as long as they keep playing well, I guess, and nothing happens, it could be this. Oh, and of course, Liverpool continue this dire run. And they have been awful this season. They might be on 15 points, but like, we never said after a game that are like, oh, they've been good. But at least Arsenal, even when they have dropped points, for example, the City game, they were still dominant in that game, right? Had some issues, but much better in the second half. So yeah, that's that. West Ham will be absolutely okay. I think like between Pakistan, Somerville, Bowen, and I really like Wilson, so him up top. And you've got, for example, Wan-Bissaka on the flank. Oh, Magassa and Fernandes. Fernandes, really like what I've seen same last season. That's a really good team. They're going to be completely okay. The relegation is not even a question. It's just where will they finish up. If I was in that West Ham camp, I mean, I would really fancy myself to do quite well because they've got a really decent starting 11 to do with the centre back upgrade if they're playing a 2. Because Kilman is, for me, the most obvious left centre back in a 3 you'll ever find. Right, so suited to that role. In a 2, I'm not saying he's bad. He's just not so much. Not my preference, at least, not so much. And then even Todibo, I personally would play him at right centre back, but even he's quite good in the 3. Then, maybe you don't want to play that system, which is fair enough. So I think with better centre backs, they could be really, really good, or at least better suited centre backs. Really, really good. Not Arsenal really, really good, but really, really good considering what they looked like at the start of the season. Yeah, like I said in the bottom line, Arsenal defence, making a chance against them, like a proper chance, seems so difficult. Maybe you'll get 1-2 in a game. So yeah, I think the double up in there is not one that can be criticised. Normally, I'm pretty anti going Raya due to the fact that like he's the most expensive and the fact that the ceiling's not too high. But with it being harder for goalkeepers now, and you've got Defcon for the other guys, I don't mind going here because I really struggle to see any side that they play in the recent in the near future giving them too many problems, and problems at all, really. I was going to finish this section there, but considering this FPL match analysis, one extremely important player who's highly owned in the engaged community is Victor Gyökeres. So I thought I would repeat some of my analysis of the past. There are 3 ways primarily in which he's going to score goals. 1, transitions, particularly those very quick ones. 2, spacing behind, which you're not going to get much of in this league at all. And 3, when he gets played into the channel in a fairly quick situation again, and he can essentially be one-on-one with the centre-back with an initial starting advantage due to either the quality pass, but also the movement, and then he gets a shot from there. Even there, his ability to take the shot quickly isn't great. You saw that against Olympiacos, for example, when the defender, I thought, recovered excellently well. Another striker probably would have got the shot off quicker and forced the goalkeeper into a save. So that's that, right? Like, you have those routes, but they're not super accessible considering even in the channel, I think he could be more dangerous than he is. The fact that you don't get much space in behind, and the fact that, like he will definitely have channel transitions generated for him, but he still has to be ruthless enough to put him away like Haaland. But outside of that, what he's going to have to score, or ways he's maybe not going to score with, is being in the box, those Chris Wood type of finishes from last year, headers, and it's very, I'd say more the way you describe it, slightly more technical. The ball gets put into him, you manufacture something yourself, little touch here, there, drop the shoulder, get a shot off, short backlift, those type of goals, right? Real old school striker type of stuff. Or old school and new school slightly hybrid, right? That's not really his bread and butter. And against Arsenal, when you play against Arsenal, you almost manufacture that for the 9 through your approach, right? You don't give him much space in behind. Obviously, you wouldn't. Why would you do that? Especially imagine if Martinelli's on the left and you have Gyökeres. It'd just be stupid, right? Which is why most teams don't do it. Why Pep played such a deep line and parked the bus, basically, right? Even someone of his pedigree was willing to concede in that manner. So given he's going to have what he doesn't really like, are you expecting too many goals? Well, no, you're definitely not expecting too many goals. And even if you get one, I think you're almost considering yourself a bit lucky. You're like, oh, he actually scored, as opposed to, yeah, I was definitely expecting that. And at 9 million, and the forward category in general just being pretty dire, I wouldn't invest there. Even now, Burnley away, Sunderland away, I was going to sell Haaland and get back for Gyökeres, but I think I'll just abandon it. I'd rather just go, if I'm going to go double attack, I'll just go Saka Eze and try and beat him in that fashion. And I think I can. Because for him to score a brace, I think is pretty unlikely. Obviously got one against Leeds, but even the first goal, I didn't think it's one that's very replicable. I think if you did that, put that sequence, right, that exact thing against another opposition, they wouldn't have let it happen. I don't even think Leeds would let it happen again, that goal. And then it's a penalty, which maybe he's not taking, as we can see on screen. So if you have Gyökeres, I would really consider getting rid soon. And I know that may be hard, given that Burnley away, Sunderland at home so close. But before that, Fulham, not so easy. He'll probably have it pretty tough in that game. And then you've got the mighty Crystal Palace straight after. Erling Haaland mentioned, well, at least I think he mentioned, because I saw a quote on social media, that this is the best he's ever felt, and having a child has actually been so beneficial for him in this regard, because he's really been able to detach from football and get away from it. And the reason I didn't even research the quote too much, but the reason I'm happy to put it on here and say that is because he does look better than he's ever looked, and he looks amazing, right? That first goal, as I tweeted out, is so abnormal. I mean, firstly, to even get the right side of Van den Berg initially is really tough. I don't think most strikers would have been able to do that. Van den Berg's a big, strong guy, right? But he gets the right side of him. But then he's kind of stuck in the mud. And Collins, another good centre-back, is in close proximity, and Van den Berg is on his back. But there's just this little explosion. But even though it's quite explosive, it's very controlled, and you can still tell the body's very much under control, I guess you could say again. And then the finish is wonderful, right? It's all very fluid. Obviously, he's a very big guy, doesn't have maybe the legs of Ekitike, so it doesn't look as smooth, but still very fluid and quite easy on the eye. That is a completely abnormal goal to score. And the thing is, if it was just once, okay. But I remember a goal he scored against Dortmund in the box last season, which was ridiculous, a ridiculous show of athleticism. Look at the goal he scored against Arsenal. I mean, this is two world-class centre-backs, Gabriel, Saliba. They didn't even get close. I mean, he just burnt them. Because when he puts his head down and goes, he's gone. And in general, the level of athleticism, particularly that, and physicality is another thing, but particularly athleticism is a joke. And when you have the quality, I don't think you can't really stop him, right? It's really difficult to stop him. I'd say the only real way to stop Erling Haaland on the planet is to ensure that the supply into him from the rest of the City guys isn't great. But if the City guys are putting him in even 50-50s, at some point in the game, he'll absolutely kill you. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't recommend going without him, especially given the fact that like the fixture's turning 13, so you're going to want him from there, and he's in such good form now that I don't really see anyone stopping him. So yeah, and even if he just continues to get 9, there'll be a brace in there at some point. Just phenomenal. City were pretty, I wouldn't say really good, but pretty good in that first half. Gary Neville spoke about, for example, in that 5-3-2, you had a lot of space on the flanks. They could get their wingers, for example, in isolated situations, sometimes in a 2v1. I thought they underutilized switches a little bit. There's one point I was like screaming for Savinho to go in my head. I was screaming for them to hit a switch to go into Savinho and create another isolated situation with even more space. But they worked that to decent effect. I thought Foden, if he had a sharper game, it would have reflected on Manchester City's dominance in the first half better, because had he had a sharper game, had a touch here or a shot here been better, they would have probably been more goals in front. And then Rangers as well. I've spoken about this many times. Great player. I wouldn't say this, however, is from an attacking standpoint, his bread and butter. I think defensively, to have an 8 of Rangers' quality whilst still giving you attacking threat is so useful. But purely on the attacking side, against blocks, I'm still adamant, and I think it's showed every game. I remember a shot today as well, that his snappiness and that he takes everything so quickly, so quickly, isn't actually that great for him. And he's not also much of a passer. When you've spoken about in the past that, like, with Haaland, you want a passer to be able to help him get goals in the middle, right? I think Foden's definitely become that way, more orientated, certainly. But maybe not. Rangers isn't quite there yet. In transition and when there's space and those really quick moments, yeah, for sure. You've seen it against Arsenal, you've seen it against Wolves, you've seen it against Brighton, but in these type of situations, not so much. Not like his bag, not his set of quality, really. So that's something to consider going forward against blocks. But what I also think is if that you had Doku on the left, you would have got so many more instances where he just got the ball because City know what he can do, and 1v1 he would have made a difference against Coyote, who's a very good fullback in his own right, but I think Doku would have made a chance or a difference. So for me, he's so important, not just in like against breaking these blocks, but you see, for example, in the Burnley game, in this transitional moment, he was amazing on the left side. You see it against Arsenal, he did the same, amazing on that side. So his carrying, his ability to function as a pressure release as such, and I spoke about this with Garnacho in the Chelsea game on X, that having a winger with such good 1v1 quality is such a good defensive weapon as it is offense, because you go so quick, right? And because he can open it all up for you, you don't need to commit another body to attack. Therefore, getting counter-attacked on it is much harder. And that is a wonderful, wonderful weapon. And especially if you don't have like brilliant creatives in the middle, which you could argue to an extent that City don't, right? Foden's obviously, like I said, become that more orientated in that way. And obviously has that quality, but he's not the De Bruyne type, right? Maybe that you'd want. And I know I'm setting a high standard, but you get the point. But to have this, it means that you don't go inside more, you don't circulate again, and if you don't have a creative that's likely to be slower, the block can settle, and you're stuck a little bit. The pressure increases, you, like, at least subconsciously think, okay, again and again and again, we're trying, it's not really working. You force something, bang, right, counter, and you concede. Whereas with this 1v1 threat out wide, doesn't happen as much. So useful in the model game with how like the football's played and the systems that are implemented. Yeah, really important. I was surprised he didn't play, but maybe it was just the rest. I assume it was the rest. City's defense, this new look defense is, I mean, he's spoken about this, right? He spoke about how in the Champions League, some of the games that he lost, he realized that were his fault because he played fullbacks who didn't really have the defensive quality and the physicality that was needed in these Champions League games. And he's brought that to the Premier League. Before he did it at left back with Ake in this lockdown type of role where any winger 1v1 would have such a tough time, maybe apart from Salah. He's obviously tried a hybrid role with Guardiola, and now he's got Nico O'Reilly, and this guy is such a blessing. Obviously, like, naturally a midfielder, so he's got amazing in possession abilities, but obviously off the ball, so strong, quick, very good defender, duels well, headers obviously because he's tall, and got a good spring on him, and good in the air, good timings. What more do you want? Could you get a better left back in the world? Sure, but like there aren't too many. Yeah, really, really good. Diaz, I think, in this role is far more suited. You're not giving him too much space to protect him behind. The transitions are that they're conceding a different type of ones. He's not left as isolated, and I think that's great to cover up his weaknesses. And in other regards, he's absolutely great, and you're platforming them better here. Guardiola's just Guardiola, really, really solid. Has a couple moments in him, and you can get him a little bit, but still really solid. And then I'd say in the window, you probably want to get a new right back. Obviously, Nunez has done a good job. And this is on the assumption that he doesn't play Kusanov there. But I guess naturally, you'd want a new right back anyway, right? Because at the end of the day, Kusanov will be the right centre back at this club at some point. But when they get Kusanov back, amazing in so many senses as well, right? I remember the first 5 minutes against Chelsea. Obviously, he was getting he was put under so much pressure. He didn't speak the language. It was such a tough start to his debut. But even then, even with the mistakes, I remember looking at him and thinking, this is an amazing defender. So, yeah, this new look City side, backline, they're really solid. Obviously, having Rodri in front would be great. Looks like he's injured. We'll see for how long. One thing to consider about Brentford, at any point in these big games, with Sharda and Thiago, you're always going to have that frontline threat, always going to be able to exploit your space in behind, always going to be a threat in transition. You've got Henderson's passing in the middle, you've got maybe Coyote going down one flank, obviously Hickey today, but maybe Lewis Potter another time down the left. Utara, when he comes on, if they ever go like 4-3-3 instead of 5-3-2, something to consider, because to keep them out for the whole game, at least in terms of creating chances, is tough, as pretty much everyone's found out so far. Moving on to the next game. But yeah, overall, wasn't a great second half performance from City attacking. No, it was poor attacking-wise, but defensively, solid. Apart from that one Guardiola moment. Yeah, Chelsea-Liverpool. It's interesting because this upper game there were so many mistakes on Liverpool's part, and there were so many things that weren't great. I mean, you will see people speak about the build-up. You will see people speak about the midfield pairing. You will see people speak about the platforming of Salah. You will see people speak about the left wing. You will see people speak about no verts. You will see people speak about the press. And we could just go on and on and on, right? We could talk about, for example, the platforming of Salah. We could talk about, for example, how Cucurella was like, okay, we know they're going to leave him high and wide, but with Isak out of possession as well, they don't have one essentially to fill that space in the middle, so Szoboszlai can protect the space on the right. Okay, fine, we'll just hit you down that side again and again and again. We'll just count there, right? You could speak about that. Maybe you could speak about the press, right? At times, especially with the fact that like our centre-back pairing was so fresh, maybe it would have been a good idea to press us higher, right? Maybe it would have been a good idea, for example, for Caicedo, who has to protect so much space, to have to contribute even more in build-up and pin Enzo deeper because he has to help in a double pivot, right? And press us high instead of this more lethargic 4-2-4 where the front line is very, well, it doesn't jump on you at all, really, right? So maybe that's something you could speak about, and you could just go on and on and on. But another thing I didn't speak about, Carcas's role. But truth be told, pretty much everything is a mess there, right? Because all those variables I listed are very fair criticisms of Liverpool at the moment. I have some sympathy for him, honestly, absolutely, and some compassion for him, because one thing, and we've seen this so many times in the past, is when you have so many superstars, it is hard to fit them in, because modern football, you cannot get away with giving up too much out of possession. You're allowed one, right? You're allowed one player who's going to lack out of possession, and you need someone to make it up, but you're allowed one. And that's okay when, for example, it's Salah last season and he's just blitzing everyone left, right, and center. Okay, no problem. Like, go win us the game. We'll do the work for you. We'll run for you. When that's not happening, and you've brought in another one really with the type of 9 you're playing with this season, as opposed to having like a workhorse 9 in Diaz, and Gakpo on the left, who's really good out of possession as well, considering most left wingers. So tough, right? So tough. You're going to get exploited. And then your left back's not being platformed properly. And then you're having struggles in the middle. And not only are you having struggles from in the middle in an attacking sense, but even like, for example, Gravenberch, he's not like this destroyer type. He's very good at, for example, receiving the ball deep on the half turn and then helping you progress, and good at making tackles. And he's a good jeweler, but he's not the Caicedo level destroyer type that you would probably need trying to implement a system like this. Yeah, they've got a lot of issues at the moment. Will it turn around? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if he's a very adaptable manager, which is a good thing. The IB's probably come at the best time it could for him, right? His players are back now. I mean, all his new signings basically are fit. Now he can figure out what he's going to do. He's got a huge game with United, who are just coming off a win, and will probably fancy themselves after the break at Anfield. That's a game historically that's been very good for them. Whilst United have just won, they also have it within them under Ruben Amorim to self-implode. And it could be a good game just to get Liverpool back on track. So we will see after the international break. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure it happens. But we'll see. It kind of needs to happen. Otherwise, Arsenal and City might just make it very difficult for them to win the league. One thing you will notice if you look at any set of Chelsea fans is one criticism we've had maybe of Maresca in the past has been the fact that in these maybe smaller games, he hasn't adapted too much. For example, last season, how much did we complain about Palmer's role not being optimized for him, right? Just as an example. In the big games, it's okay. I mean, Super Cup final, we play like a 5-2-3. Cole will step into the line to make it a 3 in midfield at times, and Palmer will play on the right of a 3 up top, right, with JP in the middle, who's also doing some really good out of possession work for him to an extent, but Palmer was very good off the ball, I thought, in that game as well. Great. But then in like other games, we'll see him at the top of the diamond, straight to left, and against, for example, obviously Palace are one of the best sides in the league at the moment, but in terms of pedigree, you get what I mean. He obviously platformed him far better for the West Ham game, but then he got injured. But we've seen it enough, right? And that's just one example. Maybe some ways that he should use Gusto, some reactions to red cards, like that's been a criticism. But in these bigger games, and this is something I should have accounted for beforehand, he's been really good. I remember Anfield last season. I remember second half of the Spurs game last season. I remember the Super Cup final. You think back to Sunday or Saturday. Think back to Saturday. The way he used Gusto and Reece, very unique, very good in my opinion. Very, very good. Very, very, very good. Sometimes like you'd find even Reece in these right center midfield positions with Gusto at right back, but primarily Gusto in this like inside right role with Reece. Cucurella and Reece not bombing forward. You trusting Garnacho's 1v1 threat out wide, which I thought was really good. I'm a huge fan of him. Use your substitution so well. We have so many injuries, but he still goes for it. So his big game of adaptability is great. And I think if he just takes that to the smaller games, I think will be a real problem, especially when we get our players back, on the assumption we even do. But yeah, that is what I would say the biggest variable is. You see him do this more often, you can start to trust our assets more. In terms of João Pedro going forward, I spoke about it before. I mean, maybe with the lack of a certain type of creativity, it's going to be hard for him to score goals. He also seems to do better in the bigger games, or at least he did at Brighton than, for example, the type of fixtures coming up. I'd say you can still hold the faith, though. With Esteval probably coming back into the side, at least you still have a creative, and obviously we'll be on a bit of a high after this Liverpool game. So with the fact he's not called up to Brazil and he wants a bit of a rest, I think you can give him it. Give him a couple. Give him Sunderland, right? Give him Sunderland game week 9, maybe game week 10. And if you don't like it after, I think you can jump ship. But at that price, I think it's worth holding because with penalties, maybe gets a haul here or there. And when there's forward category that don't do that, it's very useful. Last thing, I mean, I've obviously just spoken about Chelsea going forward. I think it's very much down to his adaptability. Obviously keeping players fit to an extent and not getting a red card every game. This time it was his turn. I think that's the main thing. And with Liverpool, they just need to change a lot. For example, like let's say Kirkes. Kirkes is best in the way he used that Bournemouth. Up and down, up and down, up and down. He's a very aggressive player. Naturally, always wants to engage in that duel. So in a more flat back four, he can do this because usually you'll be in a slightly deeper position when you have to engage in that duel anyway, and you'll have a little bit of cover, right? Well, at least he did at Bournemouth. But now, with a slightly higher line, your mistakes are easily more punished more easily. And two, it's not even like a usual left-back situation. You're functioning as a left centre-back of the 3. The type of attacking advancements he's making, I'd say you probably want more overlaps as opposed to the combination type of play with Gakpo, which isn't really working out as well. I think you just want him to bomb forward, cross, bomb forward, cross, bomb forward, cross. And sometimes deliver these very quick cutbacks. Technically, it could be a bit more sound, but yeah, it's not being used great, and he's getting ripped on that side repeatedly. So that's not helpful. You haven't had too much from the right back, apart from when Szoboszlai is not playing there, because last season you had Trent, right? You had the passing. The main thing, you had the passing, right? But you also had the underlaps and overlaps that we've seen. Taking that away from Salah is going to hurt him, and you're not really getting like a lot more out of possession, especially when it's not Szoboszlai. So again, yeah, not great, and so on, right? So I think it will change something, and then we can see. I think game week 7 will be a really nice insight into how the rest goes. Because if it doesn't go well in 7, then I have really big concerns. I would be happy enough to stay away until it does 10. Wow, that was a long section. Right. Usually, I would build the wildcard first, and then we talk about it. However, there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding the plans, and fair enough, like the IB's still to come, anything can happen there. A lot of players are out of form. It's been very hard to predict the league so far, harder than ever. So I thought it'd actually be more fun if we just build it together and we see what comes of it. The 4 players that are here are 4 players that I think would definitely be my wildcard. Obviously, obviously, best Formula in keeping the game, so obviously. And in terms of the Arsenal guys, maybe one day Calafiori gets a rest from Lewis Skelly. That'd be not preferable, right? So I take him, right? Could I go Saliba? Yeah, but I think for the increased box set, you may as well just go here. And then could I go Timber? Yeah, but again, if White plays a game, would I love it? Maybe not. So as the first Arsenal defender, he's my one. Now, we might have a second, but we'll see. And then it's like, okay, in which direction do I want to take this team? How do I want to do this? Okay, let's start with the players that I think are closer to locked. And that's honestly the defense. One of the things I really didn't like about my past team was the defense. Now, this guy who I've taken out obviously has Forest away, who are in a dire place at the moment. I honestly think they've been getting a little bit unlucky prior results, but they weren't great in Newcastle at all. But then Sunderland away, Spurs away, tough. Sunderland at home, Spurs away, tough. Wolves at home, Burnley away, Arsenal at home, tough. But then Leeds away. Looks like a very good run. However, if he's going to be playing a slightly more defensive role, and maybe we don't keep as many clean sheets, he's not that great. But it's kind of an annoying point to sell him because, like we could, and he could get attacking returns. But for now, with how the game's structured, with DEFCON, I think I'll give it a miss. Maybe I'll end up going back here, but who knows? I think I'll give it a miss. What I really, really like is the Crystal Palace boys, right? Now, picking some of them isn't that easy. I'm going to go with the cheapest one at the moment, who's been good at DEFCON, good on DEFCON, which is Richards. When I look at him, fixtures from 10 are really nice, like Brentford at home, Brighton at home, Wolves away, Man United at home. But anyway, there's no real easy run in this Premier League season, considering the quality of teams. But as far as it goes, for a quality of this defense, that's good. To be honest, even Bournemouth at home, I don't mind. I'm just worried that Antoine Semenyo might hit me with another 18-pointer. It's just really Arsenal way. But they probably hit DEFCON anyway, right? And maybe they'll only score one. Arsenal having some problems with their striker and left winger on the day. But he's going to be there. And then it's like, okay, well, do I want double Arsenal? And do I want right at the back? Do I want Pope at the back? And do I want Burn? Do I want double Palace or a single Palace? Do I want Senesi? Probably because of how good he is on DEFCON. Do I want Anderson? You could argue getting away with it without going for him. I really like what I see from him in terms of the DEFCON. I think he's so good on it. Whenever they go to a back five, central centre back, so much easier for him to get. He rotates decently well. 10, 12 good fixtures. 11's cool. I can play him there. I'm looking to play a decent amount of 4-5-1, potentially 4-4-2, 4-4-2 in particular. So I think I'm going to go there, right? And for now, because, we just have to build it in a way, I'm going to imagine he's going to be the cheapest defender, both these guys, right? And because I've got 2 4-5s in there, I just won't give myself a fourth. And I'll go 2 4-5s instead and not have a 5 and a 4. I guess I have to pick this guy, right? They have good enough fixtures, like here and afterwards, with his DEFCON, and the fact that he's actually quite a threat in the opposition box, that I'll pick him. And then it comes to the thing, right? Do I want Raya here? Do I want Pope here? Out of those two. And then here, do I want another Palace defender? And if I go Raya, do I want a Burn? And if I go Pope, do I want a Timber? Or am I going to go for another Palace defender? As things stand, for the fact that their fixtures, I would say, are better long term, the fact that his ceiling's better, and also Baker from Above Average FPL podcast, which I would definitely check out. I heard him speak about Pope's ability when it comes to baseline bonus and just his proficiency there. And I think that's nice. So I will go with a slightly higher ceiling of Pope. And then, look, here, this is either a Palace or an Arsenal spot. I feel like I should go Arsenal. And who knows, maybe Palace's run is going to come to an end, right? Just because they lost this game. I feel like I should go Arsenal. Maybe I go for a Timber. And you know what? Maybe I should. I was considering going for another Palace there. But maybe just for now, I'll go here. Like I said, I'm looking to play a lot of 4 at the back with the quality of DEFCON. And at least have the depth so I never, ever have to touch this defense and change it. So that's that, right? I'm not speaking about these two. It's too obvious. And then it's like, okay, go and fix the rest of the team. Let's just go here, right? Let's go to the forwards. And we'll get onto the planning in a sec. I'll run the team through as well. They're so uninspiring as a category at the moment. I mean, this guy's a really good striker with good fixtures from 10. But when they're not hitting the ceilings, having midfielders instead who can contribute on DEFCON, who can get that clean sheet point and so on and so on, when they're not firing on all cylinders, and they're quite expensive compared to the defenders, and you want, for example, the threat of them in the air from set pieces, and you want, for example, their threat when it comes to DEFCON, it's very difficult to justify these guys in the same way. So I'm just thinking of going 3, because I definitely don't want 3 forwards, I don't think, and then picking one. Now, you could argue that Mateta from 10 is great. You could argue Gyökeres is good. I don't like him for the reasons I discussed. You could argue Isak's a great way to cover Salah. And you know what? I could get on board with it, but too expensive for a forward for me. For a mid, I'd pay for it for the higher ceiling, but for a forward, nah. Then you could argue these two, right? And Strand Larsen, who have good fixtures coming up, and they're not too expensive, right? JP has such good fixtures coming up. Bowen also, to be fair to him, has Brentford at home, Leeds away, Newcastle at home, Burnley at home. Again, really good fixtures coming up. Maybe even, I expect West Ham to do well, so I'll even say like these games might be cool for them, 12 onwards. I was like, okay, pick one of those two. But if I am to go Salah, it makes it harder to fit in. It makes it harder to fit one of these guys in. It would make more sense to go Strand Larsen. The reason I think I'm going to avoid that for now, the Strand Larsen pick, is because he's got something at home, Burnley away, right? So if you ever wanted to generate some form, but they're just so out of form most that I don't really want to do it. But now, just for now, let's just assume I stay safe and I get JP back. I am blocking myself into only one more Chelsea spot with that fixture on with these guys. For example, let's say we were on fire, I wanted to defend him Palmer, like a Chalobah Palmer. Can't do that now. I got him, but we'll see. I don't think Palmer will be back anytime soon. But if I wanted a Caicedo/Enzo in a defender, no can do. Unless I take JP out. Right, so that's that. And the big question with all the money that remains is, do you go for this man right here? Do you buy him? One thing that's really... Oh, it won't work. But one thing that's really cool about having a Liverpool attacker is that fixture swing in 13 is so vicious. It's West Ham away, Sunderland at home, Leeds. Then they have great fixtures in 18 and 19. The ones in the middle aren't so bad. And you get 5 frees in 16, right? So before AFCON, I can just take him out. He stays for 16, but I'll probably just take him out that week if I have him. He's also so high ceiling. If he hits form, he provides me with a captaincy option. In the weeks maybe that I wouldn't want to captain Haaland, let's say, for example, 12 as an example, even 14, right? Salah will have Sunderland, he won't. Maybe in the short term as well, Salah just catches fire. Who knows? Maybe he has a great, maybe he has a great IB, and all of a sudden I look at the Man United home, I'm like, you know what, Everton, you're going to make it really tough. Let me go there. Just as an example, right? The thing with him, who would really be he's like the kryptonite to this pick, right? Saka, is that I do have slight concerns about his ceiling. He's got so much quality that in a game he can always turn it on. But with the spread of attacking threat, not just output, but threat in that team, and the fact that he's still not the Salah, Palmer, old school Bruno, Foden type, where you're going to get this enormous, even Eze at Palace, massive, enormous hauls. I wonder if I could just leave him for now. And if I want him in 10, there's always a route, right? I can just sell one of Salah or Haaland and get him back. But now, let's just assume I go here, right? This was the plan initially. Let's just assume for now I go here. Obviously, then I have 16-2 to fill these spots. City's fixture run in 13 onwards is really good. And this guy presents such good value. I think he'll be a little bit annoyed at himself that he hasn't returned much in the previous games. And I wonder if he'll fix that tendency to be a little bit more snappy in the final third. And if he does so, remember I said, like, in these games where there's a lot of transitions, these are the ones where he could really thrive. I even think you could get a couple against Everton as well. And definitely likewise Villa. So at this price, as a route into the City attack, with the role, with the fact that the expected minutes look so good, the only thing I'm concerned about is Kovacic's return. And if he ever gets rested for a game, which I think could happen, but for now I think it's cool. That's that. And then it's like, okay, by the way, I know obviously that's only 10.4. I will say that I made a lot of changes on Saturday night to ensure that the price changes wouldn't affect me as much. So there's more than in the bank there, and I wasn't initially anticipating for Timber, but he's in there now. And then I look at the other two spots, right? One guy who is there is Sarr. This is non-negotiable for me, right? Ismail Sarr, he's in there. I mean, fixtures from 10, quality of the side, quality of the asset, he's there. And then the last spot, I know it says 3.9, but hypothetically, if I was just to drop Timber and I didn't go double Arsenal defense, and I went cheap, I went Gay here, and like I said, I have a lot more money in the bag than this would suggest. I get, I thought I had more in the back. But I'm going JP, so I'm stretching myself really thin. I go Paquetá as an example, right? Because Brentford at home in this more attacking role, Leeds away, Newcastle at home, Burnley at home is really nice. I would actually maybe only keep him for 2 weeks and then sort that there. I know that says minus 0.9. Assume that I can afford it for now. / I have to make one downgrade. Maybe him or maybe one of the defenders. See, I look at this and I think long term, there's really, really, really good potential here. Like, there's really good potential here. He can stay forever. The backline basically stays forever. So the backline never basically changes until you get to 13, where I can maybe start playing with 4 defenders instead of 5. And I'm essentially allowed to just get a Liverpool defender in, right? By upgrading, for example, Anderson and Gay to one of them. Cool, right? Apart from that, I don't think I'd ever change the backline. And then the forwards, if I ever get bored of Salah, if I ever get fed up of him, I'll just sell him. And then I'll instantly be able to go into basically any 2 I want in the game. Semenyo, Sarr, JP, Rangers, Paquetá will always have sort of solid fundamentals that in any given game I could get a return. So it looks really good to me. I know this is there, but just ignore it for now. Yeah, it looks really good to me. Now, I really was considering benching him. This is actually, with this draft, the initial plan was to do this. And bench him here, right? And basically take Senesi's likely DEFCON from this fixture, assume he blanks, and then just bet on them keeping a clean sheet, which I think could happen, and I might still do it. But yeah, the rest of the team, this backline looks ridiculously strong, especially when you consider DEFCON. Gun, she's super high ceiling, loads of quality, fairly template pick, but also really like solid in that sense. DEFCON, penalties, set pieces, good fixture, and then Rangers are just like Rangers, right? So that's pretty good, I'd say. Very high floor team, very, very high floor team. And there is something to be said about avoiding these type of like too many of these DEFCON picks, right? And instead of having such stability in your backline, opening up the opportunity of at some point picking up a Timber or Cucurella so you can exploit that time where you think they're going to get an attack and return and a clean sheet as well. Over the long run, obviously having this type of defense looks to be better. I wouldn't mind being able to, or trying to exploit that if I was in a position with more free transfers. But where I don't have that, I'm pretty happy to concede the upside in the defense, at least for now, and just take the super high floor of my current defense. And yeah, all right. Now we can just go, let's just cycle through and see what it looks like, right? 9, again, this is the only issue with 9. And I knew this with the team coming forward, right? That you have these two, but you'd essentially just go here. You can even play, like, I haven't even put Pope in the team yet, but I always could if I wanted to. You would swap him with Semenyo, and then all of a sudden, this looks pretty good again, right? Like, that looks quite solid. Yeah, this isn't ideal. Maybe I'd even drop him and play one of these guys, get somewhat guaranteed DEFCON. But this could be a decent prospect that most people won't own, and the rest is super solid, right? But it wasn't meant to be, like, super great for 8 or 9. It was more just to stabilize the team. And then in 10, then it picks up a lot, right? You don't have to play. You can come into the side. And then all the options are open to myself. This is where, if I want, I can just get 2 Arsenal attacking assets for Haaland. Bournemouth at home, Liverpool at home, Newcastle away, getting back for Leeds in 13, especially considering I don't have to make any changes to my backline. And yeah, right. I'll have the 2 frees to do it. There's no reason I should need to use a free transfer before. I can get an easy route out of, let's say, Paquetá, who maybe I don't want because I have Pope, into Saka, and Haaland into Gyökeres, right? Let's just say I do that for now. I don't really want Gyökeres, but it's just an example of showing you what I can do. This team is so solid, right? Let's just say, I don't know, Wolves were looking really good. Take him out, stick him in there. This team is so solid. Like, so solid. Having Salah, Saka, Gyökeres on the assumption that it was a decent option. Sarr, Semenyo, Reina, it's so good. With the fact that I don't need to make defensive transfers. In 11, again, like, you can just see with the options on the bench as well. Senesi, whenever I want to play him for the DEFCON. Really solid. Don't have too much exposure to the Liverpool City game, which is nice on the assumption Liverpool picks up. Still get triple Arsenal for Sunderland away. Then I come into this game week with 2 frees. And do whatever I want. Just use 1, for example, but probably won't even need to. This is a good defensive matchup for them. Arsenal, best defense in the league. Could put Anderson in for whoever I wanted here if I needed to. Sunderland at home, West Ham away. Got a spare transfer. Got more money in the bank. Maybe I upgrade him into let's say like a 5 million forward, right? And all of a sudden, I'm looking at a bench with Anderson, Sunderland at home, him at West Ham at home, him as a decent forward option, whoever that may be. Cool. And then you get to here, right? And you basically just look at this and you go bang, bang, and you go back into Haaland, right? Here. And then obviously I know like now the cash has decreased, but like I said, I'll open up a spot to have some cup funds and you're sorted, right? You pick up whoever you need here. You still always have this defense, especially with this DEFCON upside. And then you just keep going. You know that Newcastle have really good fixtures, right? So you can consider maybe restructuring in some fashion to get one of their attacking assets. You've obviously already got a defensive asset there. No need to triple up. Their fixtures aren't as good as Liverpool or City's. And this is about the time I spoke about maybe getting a Liverpool defender in. So, maybe you don't take out Haaland before. Maybe you take out Salah to get Saka and Gyökeres and you just don't get him back. But you at least give yourself the option with the structure. And you know what? Maybe by this time period, it's not even that essential to have someone we're looking at now for the fixtures. For example, Brentford have a really good fixture on around this time. And maybe I don't need to get into them. And so on and so on and so on and so on, right? He's definitely going to stay on this thing. Ideally, maybe he just goes earlier on, Strand Larsen. I keep the money in the bank, and I can just move it around whenever I need to be. That's probably the most ideal thing. Maybe because Anderson hasn't had too much utility in the side, he goes to Esteve and he goes to Strand Larsen. And with the extra 2 million in the bank, that'll basically sort all the problems for Wildcard 13. Another idea. But even if not, and I didn't have the most perfect optimal fixture set from 13 because I'm wildcarding prior, that's fair enough. Still really solid, I think. So yeah, that looks like the current plan. Now, I will showcase other drafts in the videos that are to come. Non-Salah drafts, I will absolutely showcase that. For example, let's say a Bukayo Saka instead of him, right, from the start. And maybe just keeping the money there to go Isak down the line to start with, etc., right? But mainly just Saka for Salah and then making some upgrades. That could be great as well, right? And just committing to the no Salah plan, at least to 13, where I would hopefully by that point have had more depth in the squad because I've redistributed the funds. Instead of having 2 frees, I'll arrive with 5 frees, 9, 10, 11, 12, 5 frees. And then I can restructure to get Salah so much easier. And then I'll get 5 frees again in 16, right? And I'll have to use 2 by the time we get to 15 because I won't want to waste it. That could be another idea. So all those things are on the table. I kind of wanted just to show my original plan, but I'm certainly open to a no Salah draft as well. That is all she wrote for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I certainly hope you enjoyed. I think it ended up being my longest transfer plans ever. But nonetheless, I really do hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for all the support as always. I know it hasn't started as one would have expected or hoped for, but I'm sure it's all working out. And a long, long, long time to go. Have a terrific week, like I said. Enjoy the international break as much as you can. I know many of you hate it. And I will be back shortly. Again, thank you so much all for all your support and goodbye.